Viola Bennet. Chapter 14. The Unfolding Map. The final pages of Viola's Abitur exams were now just inked memories, filed away somewhere in a box that smelled faintly of new paper and ambition. She had scored well, reaching her goal of basically a perfect score. But instead of basking in triumph, she found herself staring blankly at the ceiling above her desk. The question of what next hovered like a lazy balloon she couldn't quite reach. Her parents were kind but expectant, her grandparents, wise but gently amused by her indecision. Every conversation seemed to end with the same refrain. "My sweetheart, follow your heart," her grandmother said over tea. Viola had smiled helplessly. "That's the problem, Oma. My heart keeps applying for multiple majors." Art felt like breathing, wild, beautiful, necessary. But so did structure and logic. She loved the elegant certainty of mathematics, the rhythm of systems. She wanted to build bridges between what could be felt and what could be measured. But that ambition was for now only a tangle of sketches and half-formed plans scattered across her desk. Just as she was about to give up thinking and take a long, aimless walk, the doorbell rang. Ding dong. The sound jolted her out of her thoughts. From the window, she caught sight of a flash of red, Lisa's jacket, and beside her, someone taller. When Viola opened the door, her breath caught. Elias, the one she needed to forget. For a heartbeat, the whole world seemed to tilt slightly. There he was, hands in his pockets, eyes calm but uncertain, as if he'd been rehearsing this visit all the way here and still wasn't sure it was a good idea. "Hi," he said, his voice softer than she remembered, still holding that deep, quiet resonance. He met her eyes for only a moment before shifting his gaze to the porch railing. Lisa broke the embarrasses and said, "Surprise, Viola. I dragged him here. I told him you needed a professional opinion." "On what?" Viola asked, still trying to steady her pulse. "Life," Lisa said. "And possibly Mars." She seemed oblivious to Viola's farewell with Elias after the prom. Elias gave a low chuckle, the kind that always seemed to melt tension rather than add to it. "If you would like." "Sure. Very nice to meet you all. Come in," Viola said with a smile and pretended to be calm. A few seconds later, they were all in the Bennet family's sunny living room. The clock ticked softly. The smell of lemon biscuits drifted in from the kitchen. Viola's grandfather was pretending not to eavesdrop from his armchair in the garden. Lisa leaned forward and said excitedly, "Viola, you never believe. There is a big discovery from the rock you ever found in Tanzania. Elias will show you." Elias glanced at Lisa with a playful smile, pulling a few printed pages from his bag. His usual reserve gave way to that spark Viola remembered from their school project years ago, the kind of focus that made you forget the rest of the room existed. "So," he began, "the Olduvai rock fragments, it's no random pattern. My parents' team confirmed it. The structure's too deliberate. It's language." She blinked. "Like ancient writing?" At this moment, Viola nearly forgot the painful memory several months ago, but was just excited about the discovery. "Exactly. The arrangement of lines and dots mirrors early Sumerian cuneiform. Not identical, but close enough to suggest intention. It's as if someone or something wanted to leave a message across time." He traced a spiral pattern on the page with his fingertip. The translation team decoded part of it. It says, "Remember the disaster of the distant star. Rebuild the order. Make it eternal." The words seemed to hum in the air. Even Lisa stopped tapping her foot. "That's beautiful," Viola said quietly. "It's more than poetry," Elias continued, his voice soft but alive with awe. "The rock encodes constants, not just ratios, but actual figures. A cosmic time ratio of 1.52 times 1057 TP and a precise galactic rotation period 0.0104. All these symbols, written in rock, point to one event, the dawn of humanity, 2.6 million years ago. Viola stared at the printout. So it's like the Earth's own memory? He smiled. Exactly that. Written into stone. For a long moment, she just watched the spirals, feeling the strange warmth of recognition. The rock was a map, not of geography, but of meaning. A reminder that chaos could be shaped into pattern, that even the universe whispered of order. When she finally looked up, Elias was watching her. It was your keen insight that led the expert to look for patterns in the chaos. You always liked when art and logic danced together, he said softly. Viola smiled, thank you. I never expected the universe to choreograph it. Lisa groaned good-naturedly. Okay, philosophers. Before you two start rewriting human history, can someone pass me a biscuit? Lisa, clearly satisfied with the fireworks of cosmic revelation, clapped her hands lightly. Okay, enough stargazing for one afternoon. Let's talk about mundane Earth things. She waved vaguely at Viola's notebooks. Like college applications. Viola exhaled a small, amused sigh. The transition from universal constants to tuition fees felt almost comical. Elias, neatly folding the printouts, sank deeper into the armchair, his posture relaxing as though the weight of galaxies had been set aside. He tilted his head slightly, listening as Viola poured out her tangled thoughts. I want to be an artist, she said, twirling a pen between her fingers, but I want the structural mind of a CEO too. Beauty but also balance sheets. Elias smiled, a slow thoughtful curve. That's a thoughtful idea. The best learning often happens on the edges, not the center. He leaned forward. You don't have to choose a single river. Think of it like a cross-section of a map. Take courses that make you explain art with logic, or visualize a theory with creativity. That's where bridges are built. He paused, and for the briefest moment, she saw a flicker of hesitation in his calm demeanor. If you were open to the US, some schools have dual degrees, true cross-disciplinary programs. You'd gain flexibility most people can only dream of. His words hovered, a gentle invitation, teasing the possibilities. Viola chewed her lower lip, her gaze drifting to the sunlit garden outside. I'm not sure about being that far away, she admitted softly. The idea of America felt vast, unfamiliar, almost intimidating. Elias didn't press. Instead, he leaned back slightly, hands clasped loosely, as though aligning his thoughts to hers. Then Switzerland. The University of St. Gallen, for example. Their business management and integrated design program, basically everything you just described. Market application, design thinking, international stage. Rare experience, truly. He let the suggestion hang, not as advice, but as a bright beacon illuminating corners of the map she hadn't even noticed. Viola felt her anxieties loosen, replaced by a warm rising excitement. She smiled, genuinely grateful. You haven't changed, Elias. Still my wisdom mentor, just like when we were kids, solving puzzles no one else could. Lisa suddenly jumped up, clutching her stomach with an exaggerated groan. Break time, philosophers. Too many cosmic constants and lemon biscuits. Bathroom emergency. And before anyone could protest, she was gone, the soft click of the door echoing down the hallway. The room seemed to fold in on itself, silence thick and warm like a velvet curtain. Elias's gaze returned to Viola, softer now, yet deeper. He wasn't just the brilliant image anymore, he was here, fully present, reflecting the light in her eyes. "And you haven't changed either," he said quietly, leaning just a fraction closer. "Still curious, idealistic, and wonderfully grounded." Viola's chest fluttered. The past rushed back, vividly recalling their sweet kiss on the Dutch beach, and the ache of distance during graduation prom. Suddenly, the careful separation between them felt laughably thin. The air shimmered, charged with all that had been left unsaid. Elias shifted slightly, a subtle straightening of his shoulders. His voice dropped, almost reckless in its intimacy. "Viola, I know timing has always been terrible for us. But I need to talk. Alone." Her eyes widened, heart stuttering. She felt breathless, dizzy with the sharp honesty in his gaze. For a moment, all the words she'd buried, the feelings she thought were dormant, circled between them like sparks in the afternoon light. Before Viola could catch her breath, before the world could tip into a new dangerous orbit, the doorbell rang again. Ding dong. Lisa, thankfully or tragically returned from the bathroom, heard the chime and went to answer. A moment later, she reappeared in the living room, trailing a new, powerful energy. "Look who it is," Lisa announced. And there he was, Javier. He was windswept and vibrant, carrying the scent of recent travel and a youthful, urgent vitality. His eyes, dark and immediate, scanned the room. Javier, ever the keen observer of emotion, instantly noticed the silence, the subtle geometry of the space between Viola and Elias. He caught the faint blush on her cheeks and the rigid stillness in Elias's posture, the visual residue of an interrupted moment. The air was charged, subtly hostile. Elias's invitation, his moment of near-irrational pursuit, was violently severed. Viola quickly snapped back to reality, a smile, perhaps a touch too bright on her face. She walked to Javier and greeted him with a warm, sisterly embrace. "Javier, you come. Is everything okay in Berlin?" "Yeah," he said, a spark of something unspoken in his eyes. "More than okay." Lisa, the pragmatic mediator, glanced between the two men. "Well, we should probably get going, Elias. Don't want to ruin Viola's date." Elias stood up, his gaze meeting Javier's for a fraction of a second, a look of contained intensity, like ice suddenly forming over a quiet lake. Then just as quickly, his calm returned. "It was good seeing you," Elias said, his voice polite and precise, tipping his head in a small, almost ceremonial nod toward Viola. "Think seriously about St. Gallen. It's the right map for you." Lisa clapped her hands. "And don't forget, my birthday sleepover party is next Friday. Viola, bring your sleeping bag. Be there." Viola laughed, relieved at the graceful exit. "Looking forward to it. See you then." She waved as Lisa and Elias left, the door clicking softly behind them. The room seemed to exhale. Javier stood in the sunny living room, his own heat dimmed just slightly by the lingering presence of Elias. Viola stepped closer, sliding into Javier's embrace. She held him tighter than usual, partly a greeting, partly a tether against the dizzying pull Elias had left behind. The smell of Berlin lingered, a mix of rain-soaked streets, turpentine, and electric energy. "You arrived in time," Viola laughed, hands resting lightly on his shoulders as she pulled back, injecting a bright, active tone into the charged air. "We were just discussing the insane new discovery from that African rock. It's really incredible to know it's something meaningful." Javier's arms remained around her waist, chin resting gently on her shoulder. He inhaled, savoring her warmth. His eyes, however, seemed to drift past her words, avoiding the possible mention of Elias. He didn't comment, no need, his sunbeam gaze focused on her, not the conversation. Viola felt the shift in his attention, a subtle pull away from her explanation. Smiling, she leaned closer, letting her words trail into a lighter tone. So how was your journey, my sunshine boy? I rushed here the moment the Berlin events ended, Javier murmured, his voice husky with eagerness. I couldn't waste a minute. After the prom, I rushed back to Madrid, but this time, I'm staying for 2 full days with you. He released her, but kept a firm hold of her hand, his eyes sweeping over her face with blatant admiration. Congratulations on your graduation, my beautiful. I knew you'd be the best. Now tell me you're going to enroll in Madrid. You're exactly the kind of talent our university would welcome. Come on, Viola, that way we could see each other every single day. Viola gently shook her head, pulling her hand away and walking to the coffee table to pick up the research printout, a small anchor in the swirling emotions. I haven't decided, Javier, she replied, her tone soft but firm. Madrid is beautiful, but my major, I think it has to be interdisciplinary. I need a platform that lets me combine art, logic and operations all at once. Javier's expression faltered for a heartbeat, a flicker of disappointment passing over him. Then he shook it off, letting his familiar dazzling smile return. All right. But be sure, I'll be there for you, desperately want to be. Viola returned the smile, soft but genuine. I'll think about it. Now tell me about Berlin. I really saw some incredible German neo-expressionism, Javier said, eyes bright with excitement. It inspired my final project, which is going to focus on sustainable art. Her attention sharpened instantly. Shared passion ignited. Sustainable art. Perfect. She set down the printout and stepped closer. And what about your concepts in Africa? The vitality of turning waste into something enduring? Exactly. Javier's hands moved as he spoke, painting the air with energy. I want something powerful, shocking, but I need the right narrative. Viola paused for a few seconds, the words Elias had just spoken echoing in her mind, order from a distant star, a primal cry. The tripartite flame of art, logic and mission ignited within her. You could take the African idea and expand it, Viola said, her voice quickening with creative energy. Create an installation that combines light projection, painting and sculpture, a grand complex device that speaks across time. Javier listened intently, his eyes growing wider, fixed on her. Imagine, she continued, pointing toward an empty corner of the living room as if her work was already there. You use local waste and industrial remnants to construct a massive abstract geometric spiral sculpture. The form must be suggestive, the spiral of a galaxy, the primitive shape of the ancient rock, symbolizing order being forged from modern chaos. And the core is the message, Viola stressed, her hands sketching the scene in the air. Inside the sculpture or hidden at its base, you embed light projectors. As viewers approach, the projectors cast symbols inspired by nature, alongside unsettling migratory light patterns. Coupled with that, you play a soundscape, not just African field recordings, but a low-looping electronic pulse that feels both ancient and futuristic. This isn't just art, it's the cry from the African earth, a profound warning from an old civilization to our modern, wasteful one. Viola finished her description, slightly breathless, completely lost in the artistic fever. Javier seized her arms, his gaze now blazing with a mixture of artistic awe and sheer personal desire. He didn't comment on the design's technical genius first, but on her. My muse, he breathed, his voice thick with passion. My crazy sweetheart, you are a genius. That design, the fusion of ancient codes with industrial decay, will elevate my final project beyond anything they've ever seen. He kissed her forehead, a scorching lingering kiss, full of his usual sensuality and possessiveness. In that moment, Javier's feverish love successfully filled all the space around Viola, momentarily eclipsing the memory of Elias's more distant spiritual and controlled passion. For the next 2 days, Viola played the perfect guide. She led Javier through Bremen's historic old city, showing him the medieval architecture. They watched the sunset paint the North Sea in shades of gold and red, and lounged on the grassy banks of the Weser River. At the Kunsthalle Bremen, while Javier absorbed the emotional power of the arts, Viola mentally worked out the logistics of his light and sculpture installation. In Javier's vibrant company, she felt delighted and ardently adored, almost convinced that this simple immediate passion was all that love needed to be. 2 days later, having sent Javier off with a potent passionate kiss that felt like a deliberate act of sealing off the past, Viola prepared for Lisa's birthday party. The event was held in Lisa's parents' sprawling garden, and all their close friends from the class cohort were there. Lights hung from the apple trees, swaying gently in the evening breeze. The scent of grilled vegetables and Riesling wine floated through the air, mingling with bursts of laughter that seemed to shimmer under the golden light. Viola found Elias immediately. He was moving through the crowd with quiet efficiency, sleeves rolled up, refilling glasses and steadying plates that wobbled under too much enthusiasm. There was something grounding about him, as if his calm gravity kept the whole garden from spinning apart. As the evening deepened, the mood became expansive. Wine and sparkling cider flowed, and the small talk naturally drifted to the past. They raised their glasses, inevitably recalling the prom, laughing at the embarrassing moments and the dramatic exits. The conversation soon turned to Elias, the distant brilliant cousin they all revered. "I still can't believe you actually live in America." Elias, the top student from an elite American university now, Arnold slurred slightly, clutching his cup. "You were the high school legend." "Oh, he was much more than that," chimed in Rebecca, one of the girls who had always harbored a crush on him. She gave a dramatic sigh. "Remember Lisa's 10th birthday? The first time we were all invited here after starting gymnasium?" A ripple of nostalgic laughter went through the group. That party had been the unofficial initiation into their teenage years, also the first time Viola and Elias had truly met and interacted. Viola remembered the awkward attempts to impress him, his patient explanations of some stupid questions she raised. "That was the night I realized Elias was the unattainable ideal," Lena declared, raising her glass dramatically. "I probably said something incredibly stupid about constellations. He just looked at me with that scientific wonder in his eyes, and I died a little." Lisa, overhearing the conversation, came over and wrapped an arm around Viola's neck, her cheeks flushed with wine and happiness. "I'm telling you guys," Lisa announced loudly, leaning slightly into Viola. "If Elias wasn't my cousin, I would be madly insanely in love with him." She tipped her head back, her eyes meeting Viola's with a flash of genuine regretful melancholy. Viola smiled along, but her laughter came half a second too late. Every mention of Elias felt like a small pulse of electricity under her skin, familiar, unwelcome, inevitable. The realization that this stage of their lives was ending, this moment before everyone scattered to different universities and different maps, brought a sudden, aching sadness. "So Viola," Ramond asked, turning serious, "have you made a decision? Which university are you applying to?" Viola took a sip of cider, briefly meeting Elias's gaze. She listed the options he had shared with her just a few days earlier. "I'm leaning toward St. Gallen for the interdisciplinary program. It feels like the perfect intersection. But I'm still considering the others." "Oh, that's interesting," he said. Their conversations about worries and excitement drifted through the garden. The scent of flowers and sweetness of their drinks softened the party's vibe. Gradually, the sky above the garden grew a bit darker. Lisa was already fully occupied, laughing too loudly and leaning heavily on one of her friends. Elias found his moment. He walked over to Viola, his manner casual yet focused. "The rhododendrons are in full bloom," he noted, his voice calm. "It's a rare sight to catch them like this. Would you walk with me to the park?" Viola nodded without hesitation. His invitation felt like a necessary escape, a quiet clearing in her crowded mind. Seeing Lisa happily and drunkenly distracted, they slipped away, walking side by side toward the nearby rhododendron park. The air smelled faintly of rain and earth. The rhododendrons shimmered like clusters of stars under the garden lamps. As they walked, the noise of the party faded behind them, replaced by the hum of distant traffic and the whisper of leaves brushing their shoulders. Their small talk was effortless, comforting, circling around shared memories and future dreams. Viola found that, with Elias, she could open the doors of her mind completely. He never judged the complexities she held within. Soon, they reached the old playground they used to frequent as children. Elias, usually so contained, suddenly grinned, a flash of his younger self. He strode over to the ancient zipline, took a running leap, and sailed down the cable, striking a ridiculous goofy pose. The quiet, reserved young man vanished, replaced by the lovable, slightly reckless boy she knew. Viola laughed, a full bright sound she hadn't realized she was holding back. Energized by his release, she sprinted after him, hopping onto the glider. She reached the end with too much speed, and the glider hit the track with a shuddering metallic clang. She lost her grip and fell. Before fear could reach her, Elias caught her, his arms firm and warm around her. Her breath hitched. The night went utterly still. For a terrifying, exhilarating second, they were pressed against each other. Her face was against his shirt, and she could feel his heartbeat beneath her ear, their breaths mingling in the cool night. The small awkwardness of the fall melted away, replaced by the crushing magnitude of their proximity. He held her for a moment longer than necessary before gently easing her back to her feet. The question, when it came, was soft but devastatingly direct. "Viola," he said, his voice low and unsteady. "Tell me about Javier. Is he the one?" He hesitated, then continued, each word heavier than the last. "I have always carried out memories, the image of our dance by that lake, the romantic moment under the beautiful fireworks, and our kiss on the Dutch coast. They never left me. I thought ration logic would wash them away, but it never did. I have always been here, waiting to reconnect. May I have a chance?" She watched him for a long time. His gaze was sincere, overflowing with feeling. How could she not want to reach for him? He was the first boy she had ever loved. But then the memories hit. The endless nights she missed him, the confusion of being given the love she craved only for him to disappear again. The hurt was too deep, too tangled to name. She wasn't sure she could survive it if he left her one more time. She wanted to step forward and hit him, or kiss him, or both. Viola's throat tightened. Tears welled in her eyes, hot and stinging. Finally she managed to speak, her voice trembling. "I don't want to be the reason for Javier's disappointment. His love is an eternal flame, it might be distant, a kind of platonic ideal, but its heat is real and enduring." Elias's gaze filled with a profound, almost depressed sadness. He did not argue or protest, he simply absorbed her decision. He vividly felt her feelings for him, but offered her freedom, a kind of love and an escape route. However, she chose loyalty and continuity. The regret in his eyes was palpable, a heavy weight that settled between them. When they came back to Lisa's party, it was almost night. The drunken but excited guests spent their remaining energy on wild dancing. Later that night, everyone wrapped in their sleeping bags, huddled upstairs in the recreation room. As usual, a horror movie was the last item on the schedule. Viola sat next to Elias. Whenever a terrifying scene appeared on screen, he would instinctively hug her and comfort her like always, but an unresolvable knot tightened between them. Elias left at dawn. The morning light glinted off his departing car, and Viola stood by the window, the scent of rhododendrons still clinging to her hair. His words lingered in her mind like a formula that could never be solved. On the floor beside her backpack lay a folded newspaper clipping about an interdisciplinary project in St. Gallen. On its back, his handwriting vivid and unmistakable read, "I wish you good luck." Viola stayed, adrift in a quiet melancholy. Sometimes she wondered if she truly understood what love was, or whose love she truly needed. Was it Elias's calm guiding spirit or Javier's constant burning devotion? Javier called every single day, steadfast as ever. His cheerful "my sweetheart" and the little kiss he blew before hanging up gave her something warm, something real to hold on to. This, she told herself, is love. Love is simple. It's bright. You just have to catch the spark when it comes, and have the courage to follow it. After weeks of quiet torment, the map finally unfolded. Viola chose her path and received the offer, the dual-degree program in business management and integrated design at the University of St. Gallen, Switzerland. The decision met with mixed reactions. Lisa cheered, calling it the perfect destiny for her beautifully complicated genius. Javier, however, sounded unmistakably disappointed when she told him during their video call. "St. Gallen? It's far away, my sweetheart," he sighed, the vibrant energy of his voice dimmed by the distance. His face, usually so open, held a flicker of something close to disappointment. "I thought you might come to Madrid." "We have time, Javier. St. Gallen connects everything I need," she explained softly, trying to ease the possessive edge in his tone. "Art and logic, that's what I want to do." "I know," he conceded, his voice softening, though the possessiveness lingered beneath. "Just promise me you'll stay mine, no matter how many Swiss bankers try to steal your attention." His love, fierce and demanding, was a constant force, yet it felt less like guidance and more like a fixed star he insisted she orbit. "Don't worry, my sunshine boy. Remember, you're second to none," Viola said with a playful smile. At that moment, a quiet uncertainty stirred within her, a gentle flutter beneath her ribs. Did Javier ever pause to notice what truly moved her, or was he simply attached to the idea of her as a steady presence in his carefully imagined future? A small fleeting worry lingered. Perhaps he longed to hold her close, more than to understand her. But soon, she reminded herself gently, it's hard to truly understand another person, and even harder to expect them to understand you. "I shouldn't ask too much," she told herself. Quickly, Viola plunged into the whirlwind of university life. St. Gallen was a relentless, exhilarating blur, endless seminars, late nights in the library wrestling with finance models and impassioned debates in the design studio. In her shared apartment, she found new companions: Jonas, a kind, reserved senior who took a quiet interest in her, and Sarah, an easygoing architecture student whose boyfriend Lucas filled the flat with creative chaos. Jonas's first attempts to court Viola were gentle but persistent. She was always kind yet firm and made her boundaries clear. Eventually they settled into an easy friendship, often joined by Sarah and her boyfriend Lucas. Viola held her life in a quiet equilibrium. Her long-distance love with Javier came through. Daily texts and weekend calls, and these gave her a warmth she could always rely on. Her connection with Elias was much rarer, appearing only in the brief moments when she needed clarity or help with a problem. She barely noticed it herself, but his affection, distant yet steady, felt like a gentle light that guided her, never asking for anything and always encouraging her forward. Viola's true academic breakthrough came during the winter term. Scanning the project postings in the Integrated Design Society's newsletter, a notice from Professor Schmidt's office immediately snagged her attention, a project focusing on the commercial and sustainable development of artisan jewelry. Art, logic, operations. The confluence of her three passions was suddenly tangible. She worked meticulously, crafting a detailed project proposal, refining her CV and compiling a small but potent portfolio that showcased her artistic eye and her structural mind. As she clicked the final send button, a phrase of Elias surfaced in her mind, the quiet wisdom he had once shared in her living room: the value of practical experience is not measured by course credits. This jewelry commercialization project wasn't just another academic exercise. It was the moment when the theoretical map Elias had helped her draw finally began to align with the real world, a bridge between art logic and ambitious targets. Viola Bennet, with her choice and her courage, had started to take hold of the unfolding map.